Hello, bore da, prynawn da, noswaith, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Welcome back to week 5, section 5 of the Olwen shawl Olwen. So you have in week 4, section 4, done your seafoam stitches and those rows that finish off the 13 gold stripes with those 3 seafoam ones, and then you've done an additional row. If you are carrying on in this section to do the beginner level finish, then you are going to carry on with a few more rows of seafoam before you then go back to garter stitch to top off your shawl. So that part I'm not going to go through much on the video because we've done all of those before in the previous videos. So if you're unsure, just go back. But mostly if you've got the seafoam stitch and the knit rows, you'll be fine to finish if you're going to stick with the beginner option A level. Okay, but to do the intermediate level, we are going to move to brioche. So to start the brioche, you've got to do some setup rows. And one of the main reasons why we are using a circular needle is to do the brioche stitches, because you are going to knit every row twice, essentially. And you are going to do each color on your row once, which means 2 colors, knitting each row twice, once with each color, and you're going to slide your rows back and forth on your needle. So hence why you've got a circular one, so you can just slide it back rather than turning it. And you will be told in the instructions when to slide and when to turn. So just try and follow it, but you should get the hang of it as you go along. To set up, you have to start doubling up your stitches and set the stitch with a yarn over in order to create the brioche. So let's go through that. I've already done my first row where I've knitted along on the right side, and I've got 213 stitches still, and I'm going to set up those 213 stitches with the purl 1, slip 1 yarn over. Okay, so to start with, we're going to purl. So we're on the wrong side and we're purling, and I'm using my CC2 variegated contrast color 2 to do that. I'm going to purl the first stitch, and then I'm going to slip the next one and yarn over. And I'm going to purl, then I'm going to slip, yarn over, which is a wrap when you're purling, and then purl. So slip, yarn over, purl 1, slip, yarn over, purl 1. Okay, slip, yarn over, purl 1. Okay, and what happens is, let's see if you can see that. Maybe I'll just focus it a little bit to make sure. Yes, what happens is you end up with a purl stitch, and then you can see there's sort of a stitch which looks like it's got an angle and a flat. That's your brioche setup in there. Your yarn over with a slipped stitch. Okay, so that's a purl, that's the slip yarn over, then you've got your purl, the slip yarn over, the purl, the slip yarn over, the purl, the slip yarn over, purl, slip yarn over. You're going to do that right till the end, and then I will come back and see you for the next setup row, which is going to be a slide back and working the same row with another color. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so when you get to the last stitch and you've purled that last stitch on your row, you're going to leave the CC2, the contrast color 2, on that end of your knitting, and you are going to slide that back down your needle towards the other side. Okay, so I'm still on the wrong side of my knitting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new color, so that I'm going to work the second color on the same row. So my color, I'm going to go back to my main color, which is the red, yes. And I'm going to start to work the second setup row on the same side. So this is the wrong side. Now to do this, you're going to slide the first stitch with the yarn at the back, yes. And then you are going to bark 1, BRK 1, and that is the brioche stitch, the bark 1. So when you do that, you're going to take both of those yarns from that slip one yarn over stitch. Okay, so you're going to take both of those, and that's where I'm going to attach my main color, and I'm going to knit those together. So that's a bark one, a brioche knit one. Okay, then the next stitch, which should be a slip, and they do sort of get tangled, so you have to just keep an eye out. The next one, I'm going to then bring my yarn to the front because I'm going to slip one and yarn over, but this is a knitting yarn over, so by bringing it to the front, it's going to slip over when I knit the next bark one. Okay, do you see that? Hopefully you're seeing that. Yes, so again, I'm going to then bring the yarn forward to slip the next stitch, and then I'm going to knit into the next two, which is the slip and the yarn over. Okay, so what you're getting is you've got your initial slip one with yarn at back, then you've got your bark one, slip one, and this is where you start seeing the colors, both colors double up. It makes it easier to see your stitches. Yes, so that's your slip one and yarn over there, and then you've got a bark one, and then a slip one over and a bark one. Okay, so you're going to carry on doing this all the way down your row till you get to the other side. And just remember that you bring your yarn forward before you slip, and then you go over to then do your bark to set up. So you've got a slip one, yarn over, and then your bark stitch. So bring it forward, slip one, in to bark one, forward, slip one, pick up both, brioche one, forward, slip one, through both, brioche one, forward, slip one, and there's your yarn over when you go back to brioche one, forward, slip one, yarn over, brioche one, like that. Okay, so you will start to get your alternate color matched up with the slip one, and then you are brioching the knit one. Okay, so carry on until the end, and then I will see you back here to go over some of the other brioche stitches. When you get to the end of that row, you're going to end up with a slip stitch with a yarn over and a purl stitch there. To finish that row, you're going to bark that second last stitch, and then you are just going to slip the next stitch over, keeping your main color with the yarn at the back. Okay, and then this is when we turn. So we are now going to move to working on the right side now that we have our brioche setup done. The first couple rows of your brioche are going to be the regular standard brioche rib as you look at it, but we are going to include an increase and a decrease in order to keep the shaping of the shawl. To start with then, you've got both of your colors on the same side. We're working on the right side of the shawl at the moment, and we're going to do the increase on the right side using the CC2, the contrast color 2 to start with. So every time we knit a row, we're going to knit on the right side, we're going to knit the contrast 2 color first, and then we're going to knit the main color after we slide back. Okay, so to start with then, follow the instructions. Using your CC2, you're going to knit the first stitch, and then you are going to slip the second stitch with a yarn over. But knowing that we are going to bark the next stitch, you need to bring your yarn forward in order to do that, so that you've got your yarn over. Okay, so because you are on a knit row, really, you're going to be doing barks, brioche knits. So you bring your yarn forward so that you can then do your yarn over there. and then you're into a brioche stitch. But for this particular brioche stitch, we want to brioche a 4-stitch increase. So that reads as BRK 4 STINC increase. Okay, so we're going to bark that first, but not drop the stitch. So this is a little bit like knitting into front back, but doing it brioche style. Then we are going to bring our yarn forward to make essentially a yarn over and bark into it another time. And then we are going to bring our yarn forward to bark into it a final time. Okay, so that has become, on that row there, a knit one, a slip one, and then a bark 4-stitch increase. So we had 1 stitch to start and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 extras. So it now looks like 5 stitches coming out of 1. Okay, so that is a bark 4 increase. Then you're going to carry on and you're going to do your slip 1, brioche 1, slip 1, brioche 1 until you get closer to the end where I'm going to show you the decrease. Okay, so carry on and we'll check in with you soon. Okay, I'm at the last 6 stitches on my row. This is my row 1A in the brioche section, section 5. I'm gonna slip this last stitch before I'm down to 5. So bring my yarn forward, slip that stitch, ready to do my bark. And then it's the next 3 stitches. There's a slip yarn over, a brioche knit, and a slip yarn over. Those are the 3 stitches that I'm going to use to do the bark right decrease. And that is written out BRK, capital R, DEC. So bark right decrease. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to slip knitwise the first stitch and I'm going to bark the next one. That's going to create my yarn over and my bark. I'm going to then pass that over to decrease that like you would with a knit 2 together a little bit. I'm going to slip my bark back onto the left needle and then I'm going to pass over the left. Okay, and because I've done that with what seems counterproductive, the left stitch, but it's a right decrease, and it's right because it points towards the right. So you see it there, it's sort of slanting towards the right. So that is my bark right decrease. Then I'm going to do my slip yarn over and a knit to finish. And this is not a turn row, this is a slide row because I need to go back and pick up my main color. So I'm going to drop my contrast color 2, my CC2, and I'm going to slide back to the other end. Just like that. On my circular needle. Scrunch and bunch a little bit there just to get it all up because there's quite a bit on there now. And I'm back to the other end. And here is my main color waiting for me. So this already got, because we left the yarn at the back, the yarn is now in the front. And that's important because you need to leave it in the front. During this section, when you're doing the main color on the front side, you're going to be brioche purling. And the brioche purl appears as a burp, BRP1 rather than a bark. Yes, so a brioche purl 1, BRP1, or a burp, as I call it, and some others call it. Okay, so you're going to slip with the yarn in front, so make sure your needle's underneath there. You're going to slip the first stitch with the yarn in front. Then you are going to burp. So you come up like you're going to purl, but you're picking up both of those and you purl. Then you slip, yarn over, purl 1, because these are your increases from the last row. You slip, yarn over, purl, So that's an increase stitch. And then you slip, yarn over, burp, a brioche purl. So you're picking both those up. And then you carry on that way, slip, yarn over, brioche purl, slip, yarn over, brioche purl. And you do that until you get to the last 2 stitches where you brioche purl and then you slip, leaving the yarn in front. So slip, yarn over, brioche purl, slip, yarn over, brioche purl. Okay, so you're getting quite a nice brioche vocabulary now. I'm at the end of that main color row, row 1B, on the right side still of my knitting, but the second color as I slid the row back and knit it again with the main color. And I've got those 2 stitches left. Now, remind yourself that it looks like there could be 3 stitches there because you've got 3 strands of yarn, but one of those is the yarn over that is attached to that slipped stitch. And when you do that, the last thing you want to do is, my yarn is on the front side because I've slipped a row. I'm going to wrap that to do the yarn over, burp that stitch, and I'm going to slip the last stitch for the yarn to remain in the front of my work. And that's the end of the 2 colors on one row. So then I'm turning my work to come back on the wrong side. So with all of that vocabulary, you should be able to do the repeat rows of 1A and 2B to do 3A and 3B, as well as 4A and 4B. And then after that, I will see you back here for the next part of section 5 in order to carry on with a little bit of extra brioche patterning before you work on your casting off for this entire shawl. And you are almost there. I know this is a tough section, but hang in there and ask any questions if you need clarification on the brioche. You're doing great and you are almost there, and you're going to have a beautiful shawl at the end of this. So I will see you in section 5, part 2 in no time.